This is following a series of massive tornadoes in the St. Louis region. We also had quite a few tornadoes in southeast Missouri. As you can see, the devastation is absolutely unbelievable. I walk these streets myself. You've got buildings completely destroyed, homes absolutely razed to the ground, churches whose roofs were lifted off, whose sanctuaries were completely destroyed, streets that were ripped up. And the problem is that many of these neighborhoods don't look a lot different now because in some cases they're still waiting for relief. Now, FEMA, I'm glad to say that the president approved Missouri's disaster relief for FEMA, and it did go out the door, which is terrific, but we had to wait a long time for it. And the reason for that was FEMA at the time was very slow in getting on the ground, in doing their damage assessments, and then making the recommendations to the White House that under the statute are the necessary prerequisite for unlocking that aid. And I wish I could say that this was a one-off, but it's not in my experience. In my experience in the state of Missouri, when we have a natural disaster, FEMA is slow. FEMA is often ill-informed. FEMA does not interface well with residents. I remember one incident when we had severe flooding in the state a few years ago, where FEMA not only took forever to get on the ground and get a disaster declaration ready to go for the president, but also when it came to awarding individual aid, which was needed in these tornadoes too, by the way, when it came to awarding individual aid, FEMA awarded individual aid to some farmers whose houses have been completely destroyed and then later tried to claw it back. I kid you not, went to the farmer and said, you know, actually, we know that you applied and we approved it and we gave it to you several months ago, but we changed our minds and we want it all back. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It is absolutely ridiculous. So here's my question to you. I think what your agency does is hugely important. We know it is in the state of Missouri. And by the way, we just had a bunch more tornadoes just a few weeks ago for which we need aid and relief. My question is, will you come in and take the reins of this agency and make it actually work for the people of my state and every state who, when they're facing these disasters, they need quick relief, they need quick responses. Our citizens need to know what's available to them, how to apply, how to get the relief they need. Will you take the reins on this agency and start making it work?
Yes, Senator. It would be my privilege and honor to serve the American people and to do just that.
Good. I think it's absolutely vital, and I can't emphasize enough to you how important it is in my state. I just want to ask you before I move on, I wrote to the president along with every other member of the Missouri delegation just a week and a half ago, supporting my governor's request for disaster relief for those April tornadoes that I mentioned. This is in process now, I believe, with the agency. Will you work to expedite this, to cut red tape, to get these disaster declarations when they're requested, to get them approved, to move them on up the chain so that this relief that is statutorily available can flow to neighborhoods like this who need it desperately?
Absolutely, Senator. I think the disaster declaration process and also the federal mentorship that goes into it needs to be improved. I believe states need to receive better customer service. I have full faith and confidence in the FEMA workforce, but we can do better. And there's a significant amount of areas where that process should be simplified, better understood, and we owe you answers, I think, much faster.
Good. That's music to my ears. That's music to my ears, and I know it will be to the citizens of Missouri. We need better service. We need it faster. We need clear direction. And folks need to be able to apply for their individual assistance, understand what they're getting and when they're going to get it. So I'm counting on you to make changes in all of those areas. Mr. Cummins, it's great to see you. Thank you for being willing to do this job. I just want to give you a chance to respond to something that the Biden administration was doing that at the time, a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago, that at the time I thought was so ridiculous. I actually wrote to the administrator at the time of TSA about this. The Biden administration was allowing illegal aliens who did not have ID to use warrants for their arrest, to use actual civil immigration arrest warrants as a valid form of identification to get on commercial flights. Let me just say that again. They were allowing illegal aliens to use immigration arrest warrants as a form of ID to get on commercial flights. Meanwhile, your everyday law-abiding citizens who maybe don't come from a state that had real ID or what have you, they're having to wait in absurdly long lines. They're having to go through all kinds of process, which your administration, assuming this Congress confirms you, your administration was having to process. You know, your agents are having to do all of this extra screening because somebody doesn't have a real ID tag. But if you're an illegal immigrant and you have an arrest warrant, right up to the front of the line. I mean, that's just absurd. Wouldn't you agree, number one? And number two, tell me about how you intend to make this agency work better for the American people.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Senator, and I do agree, and I thank you and your office and the chairman's office for investigating the weaponization that was going on in TSA, for investigating these fraudulent ID verification that was happening, and that is definitely going to stop and has already stopped under this administration, and we'll continue to work with you all in the oversight of our agency.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to the nominees. Thanks for being here. I want to start by talking a little bit about the Postal Service. But let me start with a concern, a longstanding concern that my constituents and I have, and has been expressed time and time again. Large parts of Missouri are serviced only by the Postal Service. You know, private entities don't come to many rural parts of my state. 68% of my state is rural. 68% of it is serviced by the Postal Service, in many cases the Postal Service alone. And it is absolutely vital to me that the Postal Service continue its commitment to servicing all parts of the nation, including rural areas. They not be disadvantaged vis-a-vis urban areas. Let me show you a poster here. This is the plan put forward by the last Postmaster General, supposedly a reform plan, the Regional Transportation Optimization Plan. I get very nervous, by the way, anytime bureaucrats start talking about optimization. That usually means cutting out people who can least afford it. In this case, if you look at the yellow areas would receive regular service and delivery. The blue areas would see their own delivery services reduced. In fact, by the Postal Service's own estimate, the number of first-class pieces of mail that would be available and would flow on a regular basis to these blue areas would be reduced quite significantly. The problem is, as you can see, if you look at my state of Missouri there, it's almost all blue. It's almost all blue, which is one of the reasons why the Missouri Farm Bureau, among many other organizations that represent rural Missouri, oppose this plan. So let me just start by asking those of you who are nominated to the Postal Service, to the governing board, will you support the continuing mandated mission of the Postal Service to serve the entire country, including the mandate to deliver the mail to rural America, rural Missouri included? Will you protect that and make sure that that's a top priority? Go ahead. We can start with you, Mr. Brodsky.
Yes, Senator Hawley, absolutely. I think that, again, as Postmaster General Steiner said, we have to, he's rolled out these systems, but they need to figure out how to operate it properly. But I can tell you that if confirmed, I view very strongly that all of the rural areas should be served properly, and I will request that management focus on making that happen.
Good.
I understand that service levels have declined as they've rolled out DFA, and I think we have to figure out why and what they're going to do to fix it.
Good. Scaio.
I totally agree that the rural area should be served, without a doubt.
Good. Good. That's absolutely vitally important to me. And I can tell you, I think it's vital for all of us who represent states that have rural areas. Can I just ask you, since I've got you both here, just another question in this vein about the expenditures of the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, everybody knows the Postal Service lost about $25 billion over the last 3 fiscal years, despite internal reports that it would only run a $17 billion deficit. The current management of the Postal Service projects a loss of, I think, $8 billion for fiscal year 2026. This has become quite routine. Here's what I want to ask you about. Over the last 3 years that the last Postmaster General was in office, Mr. DeJoy, the Board of Governors approved $567,000 in bonuses for him. Why is that? I mean, why is it that when the Postal Service as a corporation, as an entity, is missing its internal projections, when my constituents are being asked to accept deliveries that are slow, that are not on time, there's no accountability, when I've got rural postmasters who are fearing for their jobs, but yet the Postmaster General is getting bonuses? Why is that? I mean, tell me what you think about that.
I can't tell you why the board previously approved those kinds of bonuses, but I can tell you that under my view, management's going to be held accountable. We have to come up with a new plan, a long-term plan. I know that Postmaster Steiner indicated he's prepared to do that, and I think that they're probably working on it right now. And I think that there need to be goals set, and in the event they don't hit their goals, they're not going to get those bonuses. At least I won't support them.
Okay, good. So you're saying that you would not support additional compensation of bonuses if the Postal Service continues to run these deficits? And in my state, let me just put a finer point on this. So long as my state continues to suffer the kind of incredible backlogs that it is suffering, and I've mentioned rural Missouri, but it's our cities too. It's Kansas City, it's St. Louis, on the east and west parts of the state, and then it's all of rural Missouri. I mean, they are suffering massive delays. 3, 4, 5, 6 days. In rural Missouri, sometimes it's weeks. It's outrageous. It's been going on for years now. And frankly, I think it's indefensible that we're paying out these bonuses when my constituents who are paying their taxes faithfully and they're paying their Postal Service the stamps and everything else, all the rates, they can't get the mail. So I guess my question to you is, will you cease to vote for bonuses for management until the mail gets delivered on time to the state of Missouri and everywhere else? Mr. Brodsky.
I would support putting in place metrics that management must perform to. And I would not support paying bonuses at those levels. It might be a much lower level that's acceptable. I don't know if it's zero. I think it's something we have to look at on a case-by-case basis. But if they don't meet their goals, they shouldn't be getting paid.
Well, why should there be any bonus? We're not talking about withholding their salary. Why should they be getting bonuses if people aren't getting the mail delivered?
Well, there's compensation theory that you have to look at in terms of, you have to pay people appropriately.
Yeah, you don't pay them to not do their work.
Well,
and if
I
people
think
in Missouri aren't getting the mail, why should the Postmaster General be getting a bonus?
Postal Service is I agree with you that if they're not meeting their objectives, they should not get bonuses.
And the objective is to deliver the mail. And I will just say for the record, so long as the people of Missouri aren't getting their mail, I don't want the Postmaster General or any other bureaucrat in Washington getting a bonus. I want the mail delivered to Missouri on time in every community that we are entitled to by law. And until that happens, I don't want anybody getting a bonus. Will you commit to that, Mr. Gallo?
Absolutely. It makes no sense to be giving a bonus to him or any of the management people if you're not performing the services. If you're losing money, it makes no sense to me. In private industry, that would not happen.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly the standard I want to see. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
In a consequential oversight hearing, a sharp spotlight was turned on the Federal Communications Commission regarding two of the most critical battlefields in modern governance, the preservation of First Amendment liberties online and the high-stakes technological race against China. Through targeted questioning directed at FCC Chairman Brendan Carr and the Commission, the interrogating senator laid out a clear defense of conservative speech while celebrating a major legislative victory for American wireless infrastructure. The opening salvo of the interrogation focused heavily on the historic weaponization of the FCC's public interest standard. The senator argued that left-wing actors have repeatedly tried to twist regulatory mechanisms to censor or punish conservative-leaning media outlets. The senator highlighted past instances of overreach, including a 2018 push by Senate Democrats to block Sinclair Broadcasting Group from an acquisition, and a 2023 effort to deny a routine license renewal for a Fox-owned station over its 2020 election coverage. Chairman Carr firmly agreed, labeling these actions as a weaponized departure from FCC precedent. While taking a sharp swipe at late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, calling his remarks about conservative activist Charlie Kirk tasteless and overtly partisan, the senator drew a hard constitutional line. While private networks have the right to fire hosts, the government cannot use back channels to force private entities to censor speech. Government officials threatening adverse consequences for disfavored content is an unconstitutional coercion that chills protected speech. This is why it was so insidious how the Biden administration jawboned social media into shutting down conservatives. Chairman Carr backed this view, pointing out that lawmakers had previously pressured cable providers to drop conservative networks like Fox News, OAN, and Newsmax simply because they disagreed with their political perspectives. Shifting from constitutional battles to macroeconomic strategy, the hearing highlighted the restoration of the FCC Spectrum Auction Authority via the Working Families Tax Cut Act. This legislation established an unprecedented 800 megahertz pipeline, the largest in U.S. history. According to Chairman Carr, the U.S. had fallen into a deep spectrum malaise during the Biden administration, allowing China to seize the lead in next-generation wireless development. This new pipeline is designed to reverse that trend. The hearing concluded by looking ahead to the international stage. The senator questioned Commissioner Trusty on how this massive newly secured spectrum pipeline alters America's standing before the upcoming 2027 World Radio Conference in Shanghai, China. Commissioner Trusty provided a candid assessment of past failures and future opportunities. She noted that at the 2023 conference, the U.S. was effectively sidelined because it lacked legislative backing, an active spectrum pipeline, or basic auction authority. With a new law in place, Trustee asserted that the U.S. finally has the foundation needed to build a unified strategy with international allies, allowing the nation to protect its economic interests and outmaneuver foreign adversaries seeking to dominate next-generation communication tech. Government must never act as an arbiter of truth or use regulatory muscle to chill speech. Simultaneously, true national security requires keeping the American economy competitive by slashing bureaucratic red tape, freeing up spectrum, and ensuring the U.S. beats China to the punch on 6G.